Section 13?
Yeah. A couple of days before the first gathering of the junior youth, who by now number 10, Monica and Rodrigo have come together to discuss what the group might accomplish in its initial meetings. Rodrigo is excited but nervous. He wants to plan the first meeting in every detail. My grandmother loves to say, he mentions, to fail to prepare is to prepare to fail. Monica, of course, recognizes the importance of making a well-thought-out plan. At the same time, she is aware of the need for flexibility. In the early stage of development of a group, there are so many factors that cannot be anticipated, and one has to respond to circumstances as they arise. She has learned that planning and action cannot be sharply separated from one another. Action flows from a good understanding of the concepts that guide it and improves with experience. Let us think a little about what we hope will be achieved in the first 3 or 4 meetings, she suggests. Rodrigo, calling to mind what he studied in Book 5, responds, "Our conversations will enable us to learn about the members of the group, their talents, inclinations, hopes, and ideas, and will help them organize in their minds the activities they undertake into a coherent whole. Then we need to steer conversations so as to achieve this aim," adds Monica. She goes on to mention other important aims: to build a common vision and to create an environment of mutual love and respect that will characterize the future gatherings of the junior youth group.
Monica and Rodrigo decide to examine together the section at the end of Book 5 that outlines some important concepts for these conversations, such as excellence and service, and points to fruitful approaches to be adopted by the animator. As they do so, they discuss the significance of the recommended themes carefully. They also come up with a mental picture of how the first meeting may unfold. Throughout their consultation, Monica notices Rodrigo's preoccupation with minute details. He keeps thinking of the many questions the junior youth may ask and wonders how he would answer them. He makes a list of activities and tries to fix a time for each. Monica does not see a need to say anything about this tendency, even in general terms. She does not want to dampen Rodrigo's enthusiasm. She knows that with experience, he will overcome his nervousness and will attain the clarity of mind that is necessary if he is to assist the junior youth in achieving the full potential of every occasion they are together. The last part of their conversation is about logistics and the material they will need. Rodrigo decides to bring aboard large pieces of paper and pens. Monica offers to bring copies of Breezes of Confirmation, as well as some snacks. Before they part, they say prayers for the junior youth and their families.
The next day, Rodrigo and Monica arrive at Sergio's home and are greeted by him and his parents. Soon the rest of the junior youth arrive. Everyone is happy to see that Paola has turned up with 2 friends. They have reached the goal of 12. This is the first time these youngsters are together as a group. Rodrigo welcomes them warmly and asks them to do a simple activity to make sure they all know each other. He gives everyone a piece of paper with some basic questions, and they all write down their answers. Each one passes the paper to a friend, sitting to the left, who then introduces him or her to the entire group.
Rodrigo and Monica go on to remind the junior youth of the things they talked about when they were inviting each to be part of the group. Rodrigo is delighted to see that the youngsters have so much to say on the theme of excellence. They deliberate on the application of the concept in their lives, at home, at school, and in the community. The discussion on this home prepares the way for talking about the activities they would like to carry out together. Rodrigo writes down all the ideas on a large sheet of paper for everyone to see. Monica explains that in all these activities they will strive to attain and the spiritual. As the meeting advances, Monica notices that Rodrigo is gaining confidence. He had not anticipated the seriousness with which the junior youth would engage in the discussion of profound subjects. He feels he can now take the step of familiarizing them with the kind of material they will study. He talks for a few minutes about the first book and the concept of confirmation. The group expressed interest in studying reasons of confirmation. He gives out copies and a quick and joyful story of the initial lesson follows.
Time passed swiftly. Rodrigo and Monica noticed that the junior young are so focused are some somewhat tired. They are offered a snack and should they go to the park for a game of football. On their way out, Rodrigo mentioned to Monica that the group didn't get to quite a few of the activities he had planned. Monica reminded him of the accomplishments of the day, which were by no means small. You should have seen the first meeting of my group 2 years ago. She said it's good humor. Practically nothing went the way I had hoped, and I was certainly none on Junior June would turn up again, but then things go better and better.
It is said in the story that action flows from a sound understanding of the concept that guided. Thus, in order to develop capacity for service, one should acquire greater and greater insight into the profound concepts and convictions that give shape to each act of service. Identify some of these ideas and understandings which is essential for an individual who assumes responsibility for each of the following. A devotional gathering.
So what do you need to understand to successfully?
For the devotional gathering. To understand that devotional gathering is understanding the concept of prayer, the nature, the relationship of a person who's praying and to whom is praying, and what kind of prayer they're using, what they're asking. Are they asking help, and the intercession and so forth.
The value of community gathering and collective worship. Our spiritual nature.
I put down what is the expected outcomes.
What would you hope?
What would be hoped for in the devotional.
What would those be?
For me personally, probably motivational energy.
Maybe the group becoming more unified. How about B? Children's class. What are the concepts and convictions that give shape to that active service?
Children's class is basically, from Baha'i point of view, is to develop them. Number one, their spiritual understanding of spiritual concept before any sciences, and developing the love of God in their heart.
And the nobility of the human spirit,
Right.
children. How about a junior youth group?
For children, for junior youth, experiencing the greatness and extraordinary part of being in active service, the selfless service, the reward and feedback of that, and along with the vision of understanding that the service is a path to God, a worship.
I also have empowerment to create a just world. Just knowing that at that age, getting the support of peers, that's
What would be the measuring criteria of this? How would you measure?
the success of your junior youth group.
Looking at children's classes, junior youth group, which is pretty much of a learning laboratory. So how would you, what criteria would you use to measure its value or its success, if it's working?
One criteria I use as success is relationship. This is a critical period in a human life, in puberty and the sudden awareness of the emotions flowing, and the way the relationship of youth with adults, with their peers, with their own, shows the result of the success of junior year concept. And for example, let's say that the boys and girls, they do not pair off instantly as expected. They would look into each other's character, they be careful and respect each other's space, and respect, the whole concept of respecting others rather than taking advantage of people, abusing.
I think also having the ability to look critically at the way the world is currently. So not just taking advertisements at face value, not just taking sort of the push to consume at face value, but being able to say, wait a minute, what are the values that I want to uphold in my life before going down that path?
Right.
And if you see something wrong in the world, having the confidence to stand up and try to do something about it, instead of just being pessimistic. It's the spiritual empowerment program. It's supposed to empower the junior youth to go through it to feel that they can make a change.
This is great, spiritual empowerment, but it's still abstract. To me, the analogy would be giving the youth a magnet that they know the directions where they're going. They're floating in the ocean, and if they don't have that magnetic compass that which way they want to go, they would be going everywhere, floating or standing still. And I think that's the spiritual empowerment becomes real when you translate it into a compass and which directions they.
Is the,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I think the risk for that age group currently is that they don't have a sense of what their values are. They haven't had this sort of the space apart from their parents to say, what am I about? What do I want to stand for? And that this is a chance for them to sort of in a peer group sort of reinforce each other's efforts to decide what they want to do with their lives, to start thinking really about what they want to be.
I heard you mention the word love, exhibiting love. And love, like compassion, is a general term that are assigned certain attributes. And in the attributes, there's an embodiment of that. So it's the behavior of the different virtues that I can encapsulate with the word love. So I'm thinking that if it is to instill these virtues with some sort of a behavior, can the confidence be garnered without application? In other words, can you just learn about these things and be confident without the need to try it out? You see where I'm going with it. What you're learning has to have a component of expectation and behavior. In the area of advertising, being a critical thinker to know when not to go into it, but that has a behavioral change. In other words, not buying the latest. Preferring maybe to give up your wealth to somebody else that needs it. And these are observations of a virtuous life. And in terms of the confidence that you would garner through this empowerment program or these classes, it's the actual doing these things that gives you the confidence. In my opinion, I don't think that the confidence can come without the taking these principles and the ideas and putting them into practice.
I think that's why the facilitators are encouraged to have that sort of practical application be part of the session, so that sometimes you're sitting there working through a book, but other times you're out cleaning up the park, or you are helping the community center needs work. That there are service projects that are built in as part of the learning process. Because you're right, if you don't put it in practice, you don't really.
You mentioned the term values, and the values is a standard, something that you live by.
The groups are going to have to initially come to some understanding of some rules of behavior in the group too, right? Not a big long list of them, but at least some basic ones. So that some of the rules might help differentiate what's important to the youth or the children's classes as opposed to the outer world. And how the animator and the other people direct conversations, like away from you know, how pretty a person looks, and how, you know, she has such a nice dress on, or you know, paying too much attention to the materialistic side of things. I don't know if I'm being understood at all, but even things like that will affect how the kids see themselves. You know, the importance, you know, that the physical attractiveness is not going to be the most important thing about them. There's other things to pay attention to. How we treat each other, etc. In service to others.
I think that one of the biggest issue with the puberty and junior youth and entering into a teenage life and eventually adult is always a question of acceptance. Am I doing the right thing to be accepted and included? And so if they have the value, understand that the junior years, I mean, the teaching, spiritual empowerment that you keep saying is knowing that the acceptance that you are looking for is much larger realm, much wider, and that's the divine, the concourse on high, the spiritual world, all these beautiful people around the world who claim to saints and noble people. That's the range you want to be accepted. You don't want to be accepted with the people who are potentially going to jail next week. So this is where I think, to me, it's the value of the junior empowerment is that they are empowered to know the difference. I don't know, did I come
That's
across
part of
the way? Yeah.
helping them differentiate between what is too often stressed on materialistic life as opposed to spiritual virtues.
And of course, with power must come
Responsibility.
responsible. You have to do something. Otherwise,
Right.
if you get the power but you don't use it, then your risk goes up exponentially. Risk of catastrophe. Gasoline is power, right? And what happens if I bought a gallon of gasoline and stuck in my basement every day? My risk of catastrophe goes up. But if I take that 1 gallon of gasoline, put it in my lawnmower, or put it in my car and use it that day, I'm not only constructively using that power, but it's in such a way that it's not going to create catastrophe, as it would be if I had 1,000 gallons of gasoline in my basement. So as I'm reading this, to empower anybody, spiritually or otherwise, the responsibility to use that power in some sort of constructive way.
How about a study circle? What concepts or convictions give shape to that active circle of service? Starting at some steps. What you have to understand.
One thing that came to my mind is Abdu'l-Baha's statement that 3 things are necessary before any result in a physical form can be, and that is the attainment of knowledge, the volition to do it, and then the action that follows that volition. So in a study circle, I think we can combine all 3. The study circle could be used in order to gain the knowledge, and could also provide prayer for the volition or the motivational energy. And with the study circle, because you've already got the network of friends, perhaps a resource for people to help carry on acts of service.
Still have the book knowledge, volition, and action. One of the first.
Jan Jordan.
Yeah,
This new generation of Baha'is don't know who Jan Jordan was. And extraordinary guy. extraordinary
Uh,
power, the dynamic power of example. He has written this research study of the writings of called Dynamic Force of Example. It's extraordinary.
Our
Focus.
Our community website has one of the books that is available on PDF. But, Dynamic Force of Example is that one. But
I was wondering why we got away from reviewing those books.
I think those are there, as a good reference to go back to.
I think most younger Baha'is don't really know they exist.
Right, true. And also the whole concept of the process of individual transformation, because that responsibility of transformation is really based on yourself. And no one, even a study circle, junior, they're not there to transform you. At the end, it's you. And I think that should be emphasized. You're right. Should be emphasized that the power of the individual transformation becomes that you establish a discipline for yourself. This was what Dan was always emphasizing, that the individual have to account himself at the end of the day to be responsible to the thing that he has set forward for his development, and measure himself every day or every week, every month to see how far were you and where you have come and where you're going. And it's a responsibility for one's spiritual growth.
and the idea that personal transformation is that new race of man that Baha'u'llah envisions for that future society.
Without the future, the beautiful future society needs the new race of men, and the new race of men are created on the individual transforming himself or herself as through the life. And so the more you have individual transform, the more population is ready for that world. It's just like that.
I think all of these concepts are great to have for study.
Yes, but I think that there is present the duality, the concept of duality is present there, because it's true that it looks at the final objective or the final path is the evolution of the individual, but the study cycle or
That's groovy.
the study cycle generate the enough energy for each of the individuals take the accelerator of the internal evolution, I think. If one person just work isolated in him or herself, the energy of the connection is not present. Oh my God.
Some kind of work disaster are we having?
Let me send a message.
I think so. On number
Gary.
two.
Would you mind reading?
During his life, Rodrigo would serve the cause in many ways. At this point in time, he has committed himself to the progress of the junior youth group for 3 years. It is crucial for him to take his commitment seriously and focus as much of his energy as necessary on this act of service. A half-hearted engagement will not do. In a world in which people are so easily distracted and jump from one thing to another, how will Monica help Rodrigo carry out with enthusiasm and excellence the act of service he has chosen? Discuss in your group some of the ideas that the two may explore in this regard, remembering that Monica will not be lecturing him on the importance of commitment. Prayer, service.
And some of these questions are redundant because, I mean, if he's committed for 3 years and she's encouraging him, encourage him, keep on going, you know. What else we can tell?
Well, no, she or someone else is going to have to help him out, right? Not just leave him on his own.
Right.
So it's not just him, it's other people.
Other people, you know, and
Boosting him and helping him where he needs help.
I got a general question based upon this text that we just read today. How is the cause of Baha'u'llah being served by Rodrigo?
is he doing it in his own, you know, say says, I do it in my time, or shall I, how can I serve the faith? That's the issue, you know, that, you know, he's putting his life around the cause, or the cause is only there where he has a time. He'll go and do it. Is that what you're asking?
Well,
Yeah.
just specifically, how is he serving the faith? Is he hosting children's classes? Is he being junior youth animator? And that's service to the faith. That's the cause of God.
So it's one way today that we are advancing the cause.
Because, you know, I'm looking at this as an adult, and, you know, what's in it? How can I understand this as an adult? And how can I use this in order to become more effective in my service to the cause?
I see.
Children's classes are kind of out of the question for me because, except for CC and Reed, Barbara and I don't have any children, you know, and in terms of junior youth animators, there's nobody I know of that would be able to fit in that group. I could do study circles, and that was kind of my motivation behind the Saturday morning during the fast study with dawn prayers and breakfast. But
I think you're doing the right thing, and you're doing serving the cause of God in the area that you are capable. You have the capacity. It would be very waste of your capacity if you try, you know, you don't have that skills and to try to teach children who you don't have experience, whereas you have experience
nor the patience.
and patience or whatever ability to carry the study circle and maintain that kind of a motivation. So exactly, it's we move along the path where we have the most effective role to play. And I think that's but there are times when there is absolutely nobody there in the world and you have to do it, and the capacity will come. But if you already have the capacity and the strength and the study, you know, qualification, why should you not use it?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that, the quote, which, consider not how you should serve the cause, but consider how the cause
should be served.
should be served.
Right.
So if the cause needs a junior youth animator, and there are no youth
Right.
in the community who can do it, then you may be called to step up, even if you don't have you don't think you have the capacity. You can learn, right?
Right, that's
Yeah.
exactly.
But
But
that I agree that there may be other effective ways that you can serve the cause. So you just need to map out what is needed and where you can
right,
most
exactly.
effectively serve.
in talking to the other Baha'is on this, their answer is, well, go out and find some kids. And what I'm trying to do is scale this up, you know. Is there other things that we can do besides do this, you know?
But what is the, I mean, we were just talking about the things that the junior youth groups are supposed to do in part. So, but the concepts that we're hoping junior youth will learn are concepts everyone needs to learn, right? So, you know, understanding the power of service and understanding, you know, excellence. I mean, these are all things that adults need. So you could think of it that way, that you want to promote those ideas, and then there are all sorts of things that you can do to promote those.
No, I think, you know, you should not take those things that to heart. People say go find kids, because
I don't believe it. I don't.
because whatever you could do, you only have a short time on this earth. You know, just
Even shorter than what I.
and it's accelerating at 2 years to 7 years, accelerating.
It's a lot shorter now than it was 40 years
I
ago.
want to dispel also some assumptions made, that if you're female, somehow you will be better with kids. No, I'm the same as John. I don't want to be teaching young kids. I don't have the capacity, the
has a-
talent.
yeah,
There's
right.
a talent that goes with that, and I don't have it. You have to be realistic in this life too.
Right.
So you have to find other things.
But don't feel guilty about it.
I don't. I've learned, I'm doing other things that I
Right.
have an interest in, and I don't know how much good I'm doing, but
So Christy, is this Baha'i confession?
we don't have confession. But I just thought it has to be said, right? I get some people, sometimes I feel like people are looking at me as a female as, why aren't you teaching? Sorry. Get that out of your mind. I don't have grandkids. It looks like I never will, so.
How many are we going tonight? Are we doing 9
I
or
think
9?
we're doing the to the end of this. Stop at 14, right?
Almost done, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. What are some of the abilities, habits, and attitudes Rodrigo will develop in these 3 years that will prepare him for a life of service to the cause? So I'd say fortitude,
Mhm.
getting over stumbling blocks,
Analytical thinking, both in a practical and a spiritual sense.
I think just experience, period. And maybe learn to be less rigid as he gets more experienced. He can not have to feel rigidity in how he's planning things. He can leave some things kind of open-ended and just let things flow.
Reliance on God. And a popular buzzword right now, servant leadership.
not just service.
Tell you, I take those buzzwords from the corporate world with a grain of salt. Been through 42 years of it. And, they don't exactly have, they call themselves servants, but doesn't mean that they really think of themselves that way. I mean, it's a nice idea, a nice concept, but too often it's just words to try to manipulate people.
I would agree to that, because I think here we're dealing with words having a mind-controlling aspect, where in reality, it's nothing about that at all, but it sounds good. And
We went through the whole, we don't have employees, we have associates. And the whole
Political
empowerment,
correctness.
that's the word, empowerment.
Yeah, yeah.
And servants was one of the last things as I was exiting to retirement was, servant leaders,
Patient-centered.
patient-centered, yes. Yeah.
Sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
I read I worked at the MCO college, and all these behavioral rules that they have volumes. I mean, just books this big. And I read, all the conclusion came, you have to be truthful, honest, loving, and caring. You can read all this because you don't have to study them. They are trying to, in all these different words, and as I say,
And the terms
leaders
and leadership.
Leadership. It
Yeah.
drives you crazy with all these words. At the end, you have to be truthful, honest, with the caring, and do your job.
And you're not a leader unless you have the word manager or director after your name. Then you're a leader, which isn't true at all. There's a lot of people who are there who are good leaders of people, but they don't have a title to go with it. They're still good leaders, and they're kind of ignored because they don't have that magic term after their name.
the corporate book of Leviticus.
313 rules? I think there's more than that in the corporate world.
All right, let's do 4.
Sure. Suppose you have begun acting as a tutor of a group of friends, studying the first course of the main sequence. What are some of the ways of being and doing that you will internalize over time as you continue to serve in this capacity? Which I think is the March 1st letter from the Universal House of Justice. If you believe that one of the virtues is generosity, then you have to be generous. If one of the virtues is forgiving and helpful, you got to be forgiving and you got to be of assistance. Otherwise, if your words don't match your deeds, then you're dealing with hypocrisy. And is that not the issue that's out there in the real world?
I was just thinking that. That's our outer world in a nutshell.
And approaching the study circle with the sense that you're going to learn from participants instead of sort of instructing them is a way of manifesting those views. And other sort of ways of doing, sort of using home visits. It's one of the practical outcomes of the first book. The home visits as an expression of love. The group would have been talking about. Okay,
Sure. Suppose you have devoted a year to teaching a grade 1 children's class. What are some of the attributes you will have acquired or strengthened?
We're going to let Christy answer that one.
Sorry, I actually wasn't paying attention.
It was very funny.
I know what I want to do. I want to develop patience.
I've been praying for patience for 66 years.
Teaching and patience.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
That was, who was it who went on pilgrimage to Uncle Baha'i and said, that was, I want to learn patience.
When I was on pilgrimage, I think that was one of them.
Yes, oh my.
Still didn't do any good.
Enthusiasm.
Resignation is what I call it.
Resignation, good.
Resignation. Enthusiasm, you absolutely need enthusiasm with children.
Yeah.
Flexibility for when they don't listen to you. Yeah, go ahead.
About forbearance and magnanimity.
Yeah.
In accompanying Rodrigo, Monica seemed to exercise the capacity to think and the level of consent and principle while at the same time paying attention to detail. Discuss in your group why the development of the capacity is so important. Say for the coordinator focused on or any one of the three educational imperatives of our current global plans. Children's class, junior, younger group, and study circle. What are the consequences of remaining at an abstract level and not communicating ideas with the exigencies of the reality in which action is taking place? What are the consequences of being so everly concerned with the detail that conversation is not given the chance to rise to the conceptual level?
I think we've touched on some of this.
And again, I go back to the Universal House of Justice message of March 1st. I think it is in the last two sentences that they structured their letter to the Baha'is of the world. In other words, the consequences of remaining an abstract rather than putting what you're learning into some sort of concrete action, walking the talk.
But not going too far either. So you need to find the balance, the moderation between looking at an abstract level and being too meshed in the details. So we need both. Any other comments? All right.
Thank you, that was very nice.
Thank you guys.
Good.